So I guess I should have one of those selfie sticks or something like that to do this new video while I'm walking the dog. But that's okay. Here's the dog. She's pretty. Maya. Maya. Say hi. Say hi. There you all go. That's Maya. She's a 3.5-year-old Native American Indian dog. And she's full of fluff and she's shedding it all over my house. So anyway, welcome rollers to the second installment of the nascent GM podcast. Well, someday to be a podcast. We'll put this up as a late video or something eventually. But from the Rocky Mountains, as one of our local announcers calls it, the crossroads of the West. Anyway, whatever you want to call it, I'm here in beautiful South Jordan, Utah on a nice day after we've had a couple days of rain. And I want to talk just getting started. I personally just kind of tell you where I come from as far as being a game master. I am really still relatively new to this. Most of the guys that I've been listening to on the Savage World stuff, they've been game mastering something for close to 30 years and things like that, and I love them. I give a shout out to the Savage World's Game Master podcast, but at the same time, if you're younger, you want to not go there just yet, because they aren't quite suitable for a family type audience, period. Oh, sorry, I narrate to my phone all the time, so yeah, there you go. Anyway, I've got lots of experience playing as a player, and I quite enjoy being a player. As a matter of fact, I was quite bummed when I had to cancel my normal Saturday game tomorrow, because there's other activities going on that got scheduled kind of over the top of what we already had planned. Like one buddy's wife is going to a concert, and a couple of us have some other stuff going on. And so, since we got those other things going on with our church and everything, it's looking like next week is our game night. And I look forward to it. And it's not Savage Worlds. It's 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. And I'm actually glad to have the opportunity to play it, because it's showing me how cool it is to have a system like Savage Worlds available. See, my intro to role-playing games was actually Rifts. No, actually, I'd have to even back up further to say that my intro to role-playing games was essentially the choose-your-own-adventure kind of games. And being exposed to the Dungeons & Dragons cartoon and things like that, but being as that was in the 80s during the Great Satanic Panic, it was quite difficult to let my parents let me get into it. I had a couple of friends, one that lived down the street and then one that I made in junior high school, that they all thought it was a great grand thing. They had the original red box. I guess the phrase goes grognards. But I personally found that I really didn't actually get a true role-playing game until I saw Rifts advertised in an X-Men comic. If any of you remember the Saga of the Shadow King, I think it was the title of that series in Uncanny X-Men. Right there before the major reboot with Scott Lee covers. And I had a chance to pick that up. I didn't have much by way of spending money, so I got that, and then I was kind of miffed when I had to save up and buy the source book on top of buying the core rule book. So that's one thing that right there, Savage Worlds wins for me. The core rule book has everything you're going to need to play. Although I don't think the current Savage Worlds Adventure Edition has the character sheet in it. However, that's immaterial because it's purely available online in a PDF. So that's the cool part about it, is that Savage Worlds has a great support community, from Pinnacle Entertainment Group itself all the way through other fans and licensees. And as I talk about the differences between the systems, we're going to see that there are other just kind of cool things that Savage Worlds provides that in about 30 years of gaming, I never really had before. So I did basically skirt around my parents' satanic panic rules, and like I said, got Rifts. Realized Rifts was actually too advanced of a system. I mean, I love the character ideas and everything like that, but too advanced of a system for me. So I kind of put it away and bought the original Tales from the Floating Vagabond, which was from Avalon Hills, actually, the strategy tactical board game company. My dad had bought Tactics 2. That tells you how long ago that was. He'd bought Tactics 2 in the 1970s. And I ended up trying to goof around with that, but I can't even remember how I found the catalog that had Tales from the Floating Vagabond in it. But I picked that up, I bought it, and it was the most fun I think I ever had. We played a lot of that, and then through junior high, I actually even managed to, I had a friend there, the one that was the other red box Grocknard. Anyway, he and we played, there was a lot of champions, I think, and I think it was even a lot more of just creating characters, because it was just my buddy Bjorn and I, and that's kind of how it rolled. We would get together basically Friday night after school, and I wouldn't go home till Saturday afternoon or evening, because I still had to do chores. And that's one of my advices for you younger GMs out there. Do your chores. Help out around the house. Yes, gaming is fun, but gaming is more fun when you've earned the right to be out of the house and be at your friend's house and be running the game. So that being said, I basically kept playing some version of Champions with Bjorn for a long time, and finally was able to start playing some D&D 2nd edition. I did in 1995, I think it was, 94, 95, somewhere in there. I got into, when it was unlimited, I got into Magic the Gathering, which is crack for gamers, because we all know what crack is. It's a cheaper form of cocaine that is much more highly addictive and gives you a quicker high, but wears away faster too. So think about it for you gamers out there, especially you that have played Magic. Is Magic crack for gamers? Is it possible that you spend thousands of dollars buying those stupid decks And there's some great artwork in there, I admit that. And it was cool that somebody took the idea of a collectible card, like a baseball card or an art card of some kind, and made a game out of it. That's cool. Actually, Garfield did a wonderful thing with that. However, I've spent probably close to $5,000, if not $10,000, in my lifetime buying Magic cards, and then only really being able to play when I had somebody else to play with, even if they were playing with my own deck. And I've still got some cool decks. I've got 7 playable decks, I think, that I will probably never get rid of. One of them was even helped designed by one of my late good friends. He was a great game master. He game mastered World of Darkness for us. And funny thing is that he was colorblind, red-green colorblind. And one of our friends in the group had these Vampire the Masquerade dice, which happened to be green with with gray and black speckles and red numerals. Can we say exactly what you're going to find in the red-green colorblind test? So anyway, that's getting a little ahead of myself. So I served an LDS mission. And while out in New York, I had a chance and bought not only a whole booster pack of Ice Ages. Never got the Jester's Cap, though. Again, see previous statement about Magic. And I also bought GURPS. I bought that, and I can't remember if that was when I bought GURPS Psionics. I think it was. Or it might have been later, but still, I remember buying GURPS, and one of my companions and I, we just kind of played around with it, but we never actually, I think, ever got a real game going. It was a little too busy for that. So I kind of fast forward now to post-mission, and while I'd been out, Bjorn had merged our group that had, before my mission, been Bjorn and me, and I think, yeah, Sam, I think, was part of it initially. And that's because his older brother Hiram was one of the initial players in that. And then I came back and Sam had merged with another group that was there in the area where I grew up. And that became my game group for the next number of years as they finished out their high school time, and I was in college and things like that. And then they kind of all started going on missions themselves, so that kind of left me again without a group. Things kept going for me college-wise, and I did have a habit of, during that time especially, buying just about every new system that came out. And then I ended up getting into, so I definitely had the World of Darkness stuff. I really rather enjoyed those. But yeah, we played the 2nd edition D&D, and it was funny because the common quotation in our group was, "We're going to play a new campaign. No, Mason, you cannot play a ninja." So I was a little obsessed with ninjas at the time. I like the monk martial artist kind of character thing, but at the same time, I've learned a lot about self-defense and martial arts since then, and I no longer hold ninjas as high in regard in my mind as I used to. So, that being said, I ended up, during college, I just played when and where I could. Well, actually, before my mission, I did play some World of Darkness with a bunch of college kids. That was fun, too. Mage the Ascension was my favorite. And then, after all that, I just continued to acquire game systems and things like that. 2000 was a staff writer for a short time with Masters of Role-Playing magazine before it went defunct. And I had my first publications in that in the March 2000 issue. And then my gaming kind of died for a while. I got married, I got all that kind of stuff going on, and right after getting married and getting close to having our first child, we ended up going forward and setting up another game group. And initially I can't remember, I can't even remember what system we played first, but eventually we moved into Rolemaster. Mathmaster, I think, is also another name that it has, because you have to like have a minor in calculus at least to be able to run the charts in your heads. But I still ended up with one of the coolest characters I've ever had there. A guy who was a healer, but not a standard healer, because he could absorb other people's wounds, and they'd manifest on him, and then his magic healed himself. So he kind of was actually a meat shield. So it was a pretty cool opportunity to learn about that system. Along the way there, I think there was even some Lord of the Rings from Iron Crown Enterprises, all that good stuff. The reason why I tell you about all these different systems and different things that I've played is because, I mean, we even like switched to the D20 Star Wars at one point, and we were playing in that. We had actually Bjorn joined that group, but there was just all these games and all these systems that I've had an experience of playing, and I thoroughly have enjoyed my whole playing history. But that all leads to, well, as a side note, in 1998, I did pick up Deadlands, one of the first Pinnacle Entertainment properties, Great White Games, and Deadlands was probably one of my most favorite things that I've ever goofed around with. I tried to get my Lehigh game group to pick it up and play it, but they weren't going any direction near that. They wanted to still play 2nd edition D&D. And I wasn't ready to game master at that point. In college, I did try to, well, actually in high school I did once try to game master Champions. That was a roaring flop. And then in college, I had some LARPer friends. For those of you that aren't familiar with that term, LARP is short for live action role playing, and they are wonderful people, kind of a special breed, a little bit more extreme than I like to go, really. And then again, I realized the other day that when my dad had me along on Mountain Man Rendezvous, that was LARPing. So anyway, I ended up trying to game master 7th Sea. And actually, that group that Bjorn later joined, where we played Rolemaster as well, I tried to game master 7th Sea there as well. And it's a great setting. I love the setting. John Wick is one of my personal role-playing game heroes. You get a chance to pick up any of his books, I recommend it. However, it seemed like I wasn't destined to be a game master. Then, last year hit. And one of the things that I'd done like the year before is I found out that Savage Worlds had an official published setting called Deadlands Noir. Now, I love noir fiction. Come on. I love the whole detective and gumshoe, and I mean, I read Raymond Chandler. Kane I can't get into as much, but I still love him. And I also have... You can pet her. Yes, you may. Hi. So, yep, thank you. Yep, we got... That's the other fun of having the dog out. Is that... And I don't blame them. Everybody wants to pet her because she's big and fluffy. Anyway, we get... So I pick up Deadlands Noir, and actually I just picked up the book itself. I didn't pick up the core rule book that was out at the time. Deadlands, or not Deadlands, but Savage Worlds Deluxe. And doing well, thanks. How are you? Everything been going well for you guys?
Yeah, pretty good. You?
Hey, going as well as I can, man.
Nice and warm, huh?
Yeah, but I liked yesterday's rain better.
We got some.
Yes, we did. Catch you later. So, and that's one of the joys of everybody in the neighborhood knowing me. But anyway, so yeah, that's kind of how I got back into Savage Worlds, actually, was that I'd bought Deadlands Noir just thinking it'd be a good, helpful resource for me for writing my stories. And then that kind of led into, well, I guess I'll buy the Savage Worlds book, because I did have the original Savage Worlds from 2003. And I thought that was a pretty cool book. I didn't buy the second edition when that came out. And then I had a chance to get the deluxe for $10, and that was like a great purchase buy-in point. Bought that, and eventually even bought the Deadlands Noir companion, which gives rules for psychers. And as I mentioned that already for GURPS, I am a psycher sucker. I love psychers. I love everything about them. That whole idea of just internal willpower and thought power, being able to accomplish the things that you need to accomplish. So it's, to me, that's good fun. So I ended up being asked to run a game, and my friends wanted to really get this game going together, but I hadn't game mastered in years, except for those failed attempts at 7th Sea. And so I just reached out to the internet and grabbed everything I could regarding game mastering. I grabbed on and watched all the videos that I could with Matt Mercer and took copious notes, because I'd seen, I think, one half episode of Critical Role, which, as a word of warning to you game masters out there who are new game masters like myself, don't try to make your game like Critical Role. That happens when you have a bunch of talented professionals in the voice acting and improvisational fields, and they all get together and they play a role-playing game and get some production value behind it. A real actual play is a lot of ums and uhs, and it just, there is just some levels of, there are just some levels that that you should not be expecting yourself to reach, especially right out of the box. Because you got to be patient with yourself. This is your first time game mastering, and you're not going to be perfect. You're not even going to be really even technically successful, but you can't give up. And that's what I learned. And so I took Deadlands Noir. I took one of my favorite neo-noirs, which is the film LA Confidential, which, by the way, again, on a family-friendly channel, I do not endorse it for anybody younger than the age of 17. And I took that and I kind of modified it to fit the world. And I had twists and turns and different ends for the team, and actually made it about the team, and I tried to make it so everybody in the game group got a turn to shine, that kind of thing. And I mean, although I wasn't very creative and original, like on the name of like one of the guys who's an antagonist, they don't know he is an antagonist, and it's, instead of Pierce Patchett, it was Pierce Pache. So, like I said, not very original, but fortunately everybody I was gaming with isn't as corrupt as I am, and so none of them had seen the movie anyway. So that was kind of a nice situation. But I just really realized that there is a need for a podcast like what I intend to turn this into. I'm actually going to try and figure out how to go live here in the next while. I somehow don't meet the eligibility requirements. I don't know what they are. I'm going to have to look them up. And yeah, I just realized that I want to become the best game master I can. That's where I discovered the Savage Worlds GM podcast. And in the last little bit, like I said last week, I have run 2 Game Master boot camps. I hope to run more in the future, especially as I get more players. And now we've run 2 nights of the Offline Cafe. The Offline Cafe is my initiative and my program to help teens get offline and start using their real imaginations instead of just something on their phones. And I know I've narrated this whole thing into my phone while I've been walking, but I really just want to share this with people to kind of show that even if you're an old jerk of a gamer like I am, who, I don't know, give or take, I really don't think I've ever been that good at the role-playing side of it either. But the funny thing is I do have a theater background. And one of the things that I've already talked to my wife, my lovely wife Corey, K-O-R-I, about, is that she actually was a drama instructor for high school. But still, I've asked her, and she's graciously accepted, to teach me how to be a better improvisational game master. I'm going to be learning how to do that great yes and no but. So I guess that's the first step on the game mastering journey, is to realize where you've come from. To realize that you have a unique history that will make you a better game master, regardless of how you feel you've done so far. Last night, we actually got to do a full hour's worth of gaming. And that full hour's worth of gaming produced some of the most fun I've had in a long time. And then once I got that part done, well, actually, just like last night, I realized that, especially once we got into the combat, which I think no system handles better than Savage Worlds. Once we got into the combat, we only got to do 1 round. But the gamers, they started having a great time. The players were actually starting to get into it, starting to even think about their tactics. And even though my kids, Harold and Clara, who are 13 for my daughter and 15 for my son, even though they actually, they weren't there last night. They've been out of town all week. Hence the reason why I'm walking the dog at this time of night. Their characters were even actually able to contribute to the fight, and we were able to move the story forward. Now, if you get a chance, the system that or the story world that we're running in Savage Worlds Adventure Edition is the one called Crystal Heart. And there's a webcomic up to 4 players. I put it in the description last week. Up to 4 players has that webcomic, and it is excellent. It teaches how to game master according to Savage Worlds Deluxe, and how to play. And it also teaches or shows the idea of converting your party from Savage Worlds Deluxe to Savage World Adventure Edition. The nice thing about Savage Worlds Adventure Edition is that it, like Jared Gunning and the rest of the guys at the GM podcast have pointed out, there is, and we've all admittedly they got a couple weeks before I did because they're content producers, like I hope to be maybe someday, but they have had, give or take a couple weeks, just about as much time game mastering it as I have. And now that I've got this weekly game group going, and am running another one for some friends, I think that I might actually be able to catch up and be a decent game master. Sit. Sit, Maya. Good girl. Paw. Paw. Okay. So, anyway, thanks for tuning in to my second video. I want to thank you all for the support that you're giving me now and that you'll give me as you begin to discover these videos. And I hope to, like I said, turn this into a podcast and make it something that you all can grab any time on your phones or on your computers and listen, and it'll maybe inspire you to try something new. So maybe that should be my handle and sign off for this, is because we are all nascent GMs. We are all learning something new. So rollers, my new advice is try something new and see where it takes you. See where it takes your players. Till then, this is Mason, the Nascent GM, signing off.